Hello, racers. I'm Chief Master Sgt. Chris Durcholz, the 181st Intelligence Wing Command Chief, outgoing.
Hello, racers. I'm Chief Master Sergeant Robert Hackett. I am the incoming Command Chief for the 181st Intelligence Wing.
I'm the 7th Command Chief.
And I am the 8th.
This pandemic has forced us to think outside the box in how we do business, from teledrills to telework, things that we never thought we would do. And this is no exception. This is our attempt at the transfer of authority and the way forward, how we got to where we are, and the way forward under our new Command Chief. When I took over as the Command Chief, one of the things that was apparent to me is that we were doing a lot of professional development, but what we didn't have is a very specific way or reason for doing it. And it was kind of a shotgun approach. And so as I had some folks around base that would ask me about, what do I need to do to make chief? And I thought, well, it's great that you would ask me, but who am I? I just became the 7th Command Chief, and I'm not so sure that I really have that answer. I know you can ask me personally, but I thought the thing that we were missing is what do we as a group decide? And Chief Anderson was here shortly after I took over, and he came with General Rice. We were out to dinner one night, and I asked him about that. And apparently that kind of was an issue across the Air National Guard. A couple of my classmates from my Command Chief course were talking, and they started asking questions about, what's your process and how do you determine who gets to be a chief and when, and what criteria do you use? And so that's when you and I started talking, and went to the Chiefs Council and asked them, what do you guys think about this? And should we have some sort of metrics? Colonel Holmes had come up with a metrics on measuring all kinds of things when he was in the intel group. And so that, well, let's measure how we're doing as chiefs. What's the threshold when you have enough experience and you have enough time in grade, time in service, and you kind of met that to where you can be an effective leader and you can be successful as a chief, and not just be a chief, but be a good leader, was kind of what we were looking at. So when we sat down with the Chiefs Council, and from that, it was you and Chief Gilmore who said, yeah, we'll be on that team to develop this chief metrics. Well, we put it out once we came up with the criteria. We put it out to the flight, squadron, and group commanders, and the mission support group really was very active in it. And I know coming back to it, we thought that they were maybe a little brutal on what our ideas were. And anyway, we come to find out that that's exactly what we asked for. And so as we took their suggestions and we started to put the pen to paper, we decided that what's in a name is important. And it wasn't necessarily a metrics, but it was more of a development guide. It's a guide of how does someone go from being a senior master sergeant to being a chief. And from that came the chief development guide. The one blank on there that I thought that we really put in at the end that I thought was particularly important is if you have or have not done all these things that we as a wing decide are important, what's the story at the bottom? There's a block there for tell your story. And that's where you had come up with that block and talked about tell the story. And what was your reasoning behind that?
Well, every person's different. Everybody has a different path. And, I'm often asked, like you, how do I become that chief that I want to be? So once again, it's a guide. It's not saying you have to check each thing that we have put down on there. And it was a collaboration of commanders as well, and the senior NCOs as well too, as well as chiefs. Right. We all come together. And I go back to, like I said, each person is different. They're not going to follow the same path as someone else to become that chief. And once again, that it is a guide. It is not a check off and then now I'm ready for a chief. There's a lot more to becoming a chief than just saying I've been in charge of annual training, I've made the ranks to first sergeant, things like that. Once again, it is a guide. I can't stress that enough to allow people to understand what their main focus needs to be to move on to that path. So to tell your story is to elaborate on that individual itself, themselves, on how to get there. That's the biggest part of that guide, is when you tell your story and do that and say, yes, I've had these opportunities, or there's opportunities that I missed that I should probably be doing.
I also think it gives the why. Why do I want to take time from my family, or why do I want to put in the extra effort for professional development and for in-residence PME? I think that it's important, if you're going to do those things, it's the why, because now you're not just filling a square, you're actually getting some experience from it. And those things that what it's designed to do, make you a better leader. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the best leaders to lead this swing as we move forward with some pretty exciting times. The next thing I thought that was, it kind of bubbled to the top was, because every year we would kind of, run up against a deadline and always seemed like it was a crisis, was the awards program. And I consistently heard people talking about how the 1206s and the process were really hindering them from being able to write what they wanted to write about their airmen, to really tell the story. And again, we come back about telling the story of the airmen, and we wanted to simplify that. The old OI, which had just been rewritten, was good, and it was pretty comprehensive, but it was certainly a hindrance to some to be able to tell the story. So I sat down with Chief Cook, Chief Stewart, and retired Chief Hall, and we started to brainstorm this and think about what would that new OI look like if we could rewrite it to fit what we really wanted it to be. And from what we awarded, the medallion that we came up with, the process, the 1206, giving people just that ability to write what they wanted to write, but getting it close to that bullet format so that we could ease them into understanding the value of the 1206 and a well-written 1206. And then we pushed that down to the groups in order for them to be able to have their own recognition program. A couple of years ago, I was at the 16th Air Force, or 25th Air Force before it became the 16th Air Force, and revitalization of the squadron was a big deal. And how do we capture that again? And there was everything from wearing your patch on your hat again, and putting your name tags on, and morale shirts and everything else. But one of the things that kind of struck me is how do we allow our groups, squadrons and flights, to own their own recognition program, and then kind of run it like they see fits them, not necessarily one size fits all. So what do you think about that?
Well, we do have a lot of outstanding airmen. And it is unfortunate that in the past that we just only had one member for a quarterly award, when we have many people that should deserve the same benefit or award. So I think it is very valuable that we bring it down to the flights, the squadrons, the groups, to do the in-house recognition of their individuals. And then at the end of the year, we could do an overall annual award winner. That's the top of the top.
Pandemic has really changed how we do business, how we communicate, and in fact, doing this video here for the transfer of authority, something that's kind of, it's probably never been done before in this format. But as we do that, you had some great ideas about recognizing and using media to get that out. What are those?
Yeah, so I like to use this forum here to actually recognize the individual that actually won the award. Let them tell their story, as I keep on going back to that. Once the individual speaks about themselves and stuff, it's not us telling their story, it's the individual telling their story. They know themselves better than we do. So I would like to use the media for them to tell their story. Mm-hmm. What drives them to go that extra mile to achieve that award, to be recognized by their supervisors, their leaders. That's why I want, like you said, times have changed. So media is the best way to recognize our individuals, and that's what I want to use that platform for them.
We certainly got a PA shop that is thinking outside the box and how to put this information out, and it's truly, again, changed how we do business from virtual drills that were never in our vocabulary when we first came in, and we were down in the fighter squadron. Could have never dreamed that we'd be where we are today. You know, another thing I thought, okay, so some of our best ideas are stolen. We like to call them innovation, but we're going to call them ideas that we got as our airmen travel throughout the country and actually around the world. But one of them that Chief J.D. Brown, when he went out to McConnell to visit the Kansas Air National Guard, he came back and he talked about this immersion course that they had. And it was a kind of a course that for newly promoted master sergeants would be something that they could not only get with their fellow newly promoted master sergeants to network, but also we would invite people from all over the base, all the different shops, from the FSS to the security forces. Everybody would come in training, and they would kind of teach them what they needed to know as a master sergeant. And if you didn't take away everything you needed, there was a comprehensive book guide that was put out, but also you were left with a phone number and a person to talk to. So when you came across that problem or that situation, that you'd have someone to contact, and that I guess it was a little less intimidating to become a master sergeant, because expectation management when you get promoted to not only an NCO, but a senior NCO. So those newly promoted from senior airmen to staff sergeants, what is expected of you as you become an NCO now? Your responsibilities change, the expectation changes. People look at you differently. So we also did that for the newly promoted staff sergeants, and of course we haven't been able to get that off the ground yet because the pandemic hit back in June when we were going to do this. But the first round of the senior NCO, the Master Sergeant Immersion courses, it's called, it runs every January, and again, we're going to do it Friday of January drill, and we're going to do it virtual. I told Senior Master Sergeant Gilbreth, I said, we need to learn how to operate in this environment. It's not going anywhere, and I'm tired of COVID-19 dictating how we're going to do business. We're going to take the fight to COVID-19, and so we're going to learn how to operate in this environment. So anyway, this course is going to happen on Friday, and you and Colonel Saylor are going to kick it off, and I just think it's a great opportunity for those other newly promoted master sergeants who generally wouldn't have the opportunity to get together because their mission sets are so different, that they can get together, they can network, and hopefully see where they can collaborate and start to build a community within their own ranks that would allow them to problem solve and be innovative. Where do you plan on taking that in the future?
Well, let me go back to it's kind of like starting a new job.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't have all the answers what to do. You know, you're kind of filling out on what you need to do, where you need to go. And the same thing with the promotion. You know, what better way to get promoted and being together for one day with your peers that have just newly promoted, just like you. You know, you've already began like a team. You know, you have someone to go to that's going through the same things you're going through. You know, you want to know what a master sergeant is, and you're not really sure. Yeah, you read the book, you understand the responsibilities, but now you have peers along with you that are going through the same thing, have the same questions. You're not doing it alone. That's why I think these immersion courses are very important. And I highly encourage every staff sergeant and every master sergeant to attend these courses. You know, like I say, what's better way to start off with people that are equal to you and trying to learn, you know, the responsibilities associated with that rank. You've already built that network, and as you speak to them, they will tell you, you know, what they do in their section. You know, you don't have to go seek it out. I highly recommend that they would do that. But that one-day immersion course, it's a great opportunity to understand how the whole base works.
It is. It is.
So what I want to do, you know, I would like to continue to do this each year. And as we have more and more master sergeants and staff sergeants being promoted, I think it's vital that we continue with this course of action.
Good. Good. You know, as 2020 started out, I sat now 1 year ago and I thought to myself, as I round out my tenure as the wing command chief and finish up 38 years in the military, I thought to myself, what's the one thing that I can really kind of base all my decisions on? What's my thing that my value? And it was, and it just kind of hit me as we as chiefs sit around and talked about, we've had a tough year. But the year before that, we had a lot of the RCPs and we had a lot of deployments. And as I thought about it, I thought the one thing I thought that where we really need to start working on is developing and empowering our frontline supervisors. You know, you become that staff sergeant and you get the promotion and all of a sudden you get a little bit more increased responsibility, but then it's like you don't really have that because you're not really empowered. So what I wanted to do is make sure that we are recognizing and empowering and developing our frontline supervisors, because they're just tomorrow's leaders. Those are leaders who are going to be going to that Master Sergeant Immersion course before very long. I think the big thing, if we were able to do that, and then from that we would be connecting with our airmen. You know, obviously this last year has been a tough year on us. We've had loss, we've had COVID, we've had separation, we've had people cut off, we've had teleworking, and it's been even more difficult for us to connect with one another. You know, in the addictions community, they talk about the opposite of addiction is connection. And I think for resiliency, the key to resiliency is connection. And I think for us to connect with each other is really important. And so how do you feel about that?
Well, I think the key to resiliency is listening. So we must listen to our airmen, listen to where they want to be and to guide them to where they need to be. So yeah, I think the immersion courses with individuals coming and empowering our frontline supervisors. I would like to take the next step and give them the responsibility. Start giving them programs to work on and let them have their ideas come forth instead of us telling them this is where it needs to be. Let them bring their thoughts and ideas forward and say, this is where I see the future. You know, our time is limited and they're going to be here longer than us, so let them plan the future out. So I think, you know, we just need to empower them as you had set forth in your time. And now I'd just like to give them the responsibility to continue that on. Let's just not empower them and hold their hands. Let's give them the opportunity to do their job.
Oh, I think that's certainly a great idea. You know, I'm glad that you have some initiatives that, and we're really at the beginning of when we all started this, and you know, talking with that team of chiefs and being able to have them to communicate with, to talk with, and to rely on has truly for me been has made this job a whole lot easier. I appreciate the friendship and the mentorship of all the chiefs. You know, as I wrap up this tenure, it's certainly been a job that I'm not necessarily I ever aspired to have, but it's certainly an opportunity that I will never forget. It's been a humbling experience. Airmen have shared, and it's just been something I think that I'll take with me, and it will help develop me into whatever I do next. You know, I always say it whenever I've done a retirement ceremony, you know, for everything there is a season. And as this season goes forth and I step into the next season, I take with me a lot of memories. I take with me a lot of experiences that people shared with me, and I will miss this, but I will say that I'm happy, and I feel very comfortable and confident in the way forward for our wing. Colonel Saylor, as I've sat and watched her make some very difficult decisions, and as she and I have done Had to make visits to families as we have talked over several different situations. I will tell you that she's the leader that we need right now. We're in very good hands. I think that with you by her side as representing the enlisted corps, I think she values that greatly, and I think you will serve that well. I would just say as I depart from here, I am grateful and humbled to having been able to serve as the command chief.
Well, you are definitely service before self. That is true to you. So I thank you for your opportunities and the abilities that you've brought to this wing. And it'd be sad to see you leave, but we all must go at some time, and we must continue that resilient life that we have. So I look forward to continuing on the initiatives that you've had. So, and I look forward to working with our leadership and moving forward more initiatives and bringing the airmen into play and let them have the opportunity to dictate our future.
I think you go forth. I think you do well. I wish you good luck, and I think this wing is in great hands.
Thank you.
Good luck to you.
Thanks.